the Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Skach here with my co-host, Tulio Siragusa, and our special guest, who we'll introduce in a moment. So the future of work continues to evolve as organizations rethink how teams collaborate, communicate, and deliver value. There's an interesting stat. So according to McKinsey, more than 70% of organizations are experimenting with new models, including hybrid structures and more flexible operating approaches. That's a lot, 70%. It must mean something's wrong with the existing model. I know we've said that in the past. So for professional service firms in particular, where client relationships and trust are critical, innovation in how work gets done must be kind of balanced with that consistency, credibility, and of course, performance. And so today, we explore how leaders can design innovative work models that both support business growth and strong team culture. Tulio, introduce our special guest today.
My pleasure. Our guest today is Megan Braverman. She's the owner and principal of Berbay Marketing and PR. Megan leads a national award-winning agency specializing in creating the visibility and credibility that fuels revenue, growth for law, finance, and real estate firms. She works closely with clients as a strategic partner, trusted advisor, and creative asset, helping them to exceed their business objective and stand out in very competitive markets. With a deep understanding of how professional services firms operate, she helps organizations stay focused as they navigate critical business decisions, including succession planning and advance long-term business objectives. As a leader, Megan has also built a collegial and a collaborative environment of skilled professionals dedicated to delivering outstanding results for clients in the firm. Megan, welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast. We're excited to have you.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Hey, Megan, I'd love to know why, the topic innovative work models for the future kind of stuck with you as important right now.
Yeah, I think that's all I'm thinking about. It's takes up my whole day. I mean, as the leader of an agency, I think we have to be innovative and we have to be forward thinking. We always have to think about the future. And that innovative work models for the future is really what takes up 75% of my time in terms of operating the agency. So it's very near and dear to my heart.
So let's get into it. As I kind of mentioned, you work closely with professional service firms that rely heavily on relationships and reputations. So how are you seeing kind of work models evolve in these businesses?
Sure. So whenever I hear innovative work models or future of work, to me, it's synonymous with AI. We can't go one day without the conversation of AI, usually multiple times per day. And although we might be all like rolling our eyes at how many times it comes up, we all want to participate in those conversations because it's affecting everything that we're doing. I think that firms are actively rethinking about how work gets done. You know, we're seeing things in professional service firms, we're seeing things like directors of AI, internal AI committees, and just real conversations about what should be automated, what needs to stay human. And it's not just about efficiency. I mean, it's changing roles, it's changing workflows and just how we collaborate day to day. So I think that's a big one. I think right behind AI for professional service firms and probably other industries is data. I think for a long time in professional service firms, decisions were made more on instinct than actual data. I mean, even when you would ask, like, where does all your business come from? It's like, it was more from their gut than real numbers. I think we're seeing a lot of firms get that data in place and what's actually driving revenue. So you've got, AI and data, and I think that these are both pushing firms to be more like structured, to be more intentional in the way that they operate. And then I would say layered on top of that is what I call the hybrid hangover from COVID. After everyone went virtual unexpectedly, I think it became really, really hard to bring people back into the office environment. And someone said something to me and it really stuck, and I wish I could remember who said it, but someone said that it felt like trying to put animals back in their cages after letting them roam free. And that is just something that always stuck with me, right? So you can't just ask people to come back, especially if you're not offering anything different. Like, what are you offering in the office that they can't get at home? Because if you're just coming into the office and sitting alone in your office and doing the same work, they're going to question why they're there. So I just think that we're seeing this shift towards like a more intentional, innovative work model of like, how do owners and C-suites make their people happy, right? And so I think it's less about where people sit and more about how the work gets done. Define in office purpose, smarter use of the time together, leveraging technology. So I think the firms that are designing this, not just defaulting to one they think is best, I think that's where we're seeing something a little bit more meaningful. So I think that flexibility is not going away, but without the structure, it just doesn't work. And without the purpose, neither does the office.
I mean, I just think it's impossible to get people to go back and have them now put on pants or trousers when they can just wear shirts.
Yeah, none of us should stand up right now, right?
Or shoes.
Hey, I dress for work. I'm always
So Megan, you've built a collaborative and collegial work environment in your own practice there, in your own firm. Walk us through some of the leadership choices maybe that have helped you create that kind of culture.
Sure. Well, for me, culture is very intentional. And we had an office for over 2 decades, and we are now fully virtual as of 2021. And so that culture became even more intentional when we went virtual. We have a mission statement, and I'll state it, but we're a collegial and collaborative environment of skilled and dedicated professionals who genuinely care about each other and delivering great results for our clients. That mission statement is really important to me. We're very much a team first culture. We support each other, we collaborate constantly, but we just care about each other as people. I think that matters immensely. It's because work is a big part of your life, but it's not the only part. And I used to call us a family firm when I was talking to, potential candidates, but I actually don't use that word anymore. I use a friend firm, because you can't choose your family, right? But you can choose your friends. You can choose your work. So we care about each other immensely. I think at the same time, we're very performance driven. Like, everyone has a very high level of responsibility, autonomy. Our clients are relying on us for growth, like their success. So there's real accountability there. I think another important aspect to me as a leader is in investing in our people and investing in myself, right? So we put a lot of resources into professional development, constantly sharpening skills, learning, improving. I think the stronger our team is, the better outcome for clients. The other thing I'd say is I make sure that people have a seat at the table. That they're part of the thinking, not just the execution. I think that when people feel ownership, they do show up differently. Now, not everything is a democratic system, right? There are some decisions I make alone, some where I consult my team and then I make alone, and then some where we all get to decide. But I think that I communicate that up front so they know what they're participating in. But I always remember that I hired them for their brain. So I use their brain all the time, right? Not just, none of us want to be order takers. And then I think the last piece, about the intentional culture within Berbay, like, I can't not talk about communication. We're a communication agency. Communication is huge, especially in a virtual environment or a hybrid environment. You just can't, you have to be much more intentional about how you stay connected and collaborate. And that culture absolutely impacts the client experience. Like, if you have a bad culture, trust me, your clients can feel that. If your team is aligned, supported, that shows up in the work.
Yeah,
I love it.
True. Go ahead, Tula.
It's resonating so much, this whole thing about friends and family. I'm hearing you listen. I'm like, wait, I see that all the time. Because, you might have dysfunctional family members that you didn't get to choose, but your friends, you choose those friends, and right. You celebrate each other and you support each other, and when necessary, call each other out, so yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and I think friendship is very much like, it's not always quid pro quo, right? Sometimes, one friend is putting more into it than the other friend. And I think that's very true in a work relationship, right? Like sometimes somebody is working harder. So I think it's important to have that balance.
Now, if you can have both family that act as friends, now you've won the lottery.
Yes, that's true.
So you mentioned you're fully virtual, right? And pre-COVID, you probably had an office like everyone, right? And so and you went back, kind of tried to figure out the hybrid thing. Probably, I don't know. We're still debating. I think we could use the money for the office better and being more intentional, connecting with each other. Doing more things with that budget than at the office. And I think, as you said, when you're a virtual firm, you really do have to be intentional about the communication and the connection, right?
Yeah, everything. I mean, it's all because in the office, there was a lot of randomness, and that was part of our culture, like random meetings, random
you can't
trainings, right? You can't replicate that unless you're really intentional about it. So when we moved virtual, I was like, what are we doing in the office that I need to replicate virtual? And what does that virtual version look like? That was, I mean, it wasn't easy, but it took a lot of thought and strategy around how we do that, because the culture was really important to me. I mean, I started as an employee at Berbay. I bought the agency. That culture is the reason I stayed, the reason I loved the firm, and the reason I bought the agency. So it remains kind of one of the core pieces for me, is to like create an environment that I felt that I had at Berbay.
I want to dive into that other comment you made too about culture impacting the client experience, because it's so true. Like, we know it from our side, is like, if you're disconnected in some way or there's some sort of relationship, that's going to come out in how you interact with the clients. But if you've got that culture tight and it's very kind, very empathetic, you're able to build those deeper connections, I think, with clients.
100%. Yeah. And people can just smell it from a mile away, right? I mean, you can inherently just sense that there's something off if the culture's off.
You can't fake that.
No, you can't. That's why, like, on the marketing side, we're always trying to really think with our clients about that cultural side, and the teamwork and how we can collaborate with them together, and just to really build a healthy relationship.
It's kind of like if you build a house, right? And the foundation, the studs, everything are just rotted, but you put a nice face on it, right? It's gonna look good for a while, but it's gonna collapse. And so you can have a nice message, it can sound beautiful, but if the background is messy, and you're selling trust, but then there's no trust internally, and there's just misalignment and silos, it just doesn't match what you're saying. It doesn't land authentic, and you can't fake it. And that's really a shame. A lot of businesses don't understand that you have to have that alignment. You have to walk the walk, not just say it. It comes out on the other side. Clients feel it.
Yeah, 100%.
So, thinking about this a little further. So an interesting study from Deloitte was that organizations with clearly defined systems and processes are significantly more likely to successfully implement new ways of working, which feels almost a contrarian position. So, innovation kind of requires some sort of structure to sustain it, or intention, like you mentioned, intentional structure. So one of the things we love to talk about here is always just getting into like the systems that you build or recommend, or the practices that you've seen that work best when firms are kind of adapting to some of these new work models. What comes to mind when you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this has been the biggest focus for me over the last 2 years, is building systems that make the business scalable. At a certain point, you realize that the business can't rely on what lives in people's heads. If everything depends on the individuals, it's really hard to grow, and it's really easy to break. So a big shift for us has just been turning individual knowledge into what I call tribal knowledge, documented, shared, repeatable processes that the whole team can access and execute on. I also really believe you're nothing without your systems. And to be frank, I would not have said this 5 years ago. This was something that I learned over time. I like what you said, like, innovation and creativity feels more like ideas, and then the systems are kind of separate from that. And so like the two, when you're in a creative agency, they sort of butt heads. But so systems are critical. And this doesn't mean overcomplicating things. It actually means the opposite. Like if you have clear roles, clear processes, just more clarity about how the work moves through from start to finish. And again, especially in a virtual environment, you just can't rely on being near each other anymore. So you need these systems to really stay in line. We spend a lot of time just creating these systems. We have a wiki for our agency that tells you everything we do and how we do it and our standards of processes. And it was, when I tell you it was a pain to create, it took a lot.
I know. I did that.
But it was amazing. And same thing with like just systems around our data, systems around our decision making. The other thing too is we do this for clients. Like we spend a lot of time just making sure the marketing that we're doing ties back to the business. It's not just doing things for the sake of it. It's being clear on what you're trying to achieve, make sure everything supports that. And like, again, what you said, the foundation, once that foundation is in place, innovation actually gets a lot easier. You're not starting from scratch every time, you're building on something that already works. So systems all the way.
For us, like I know where you're at and what a lot of companies, when you go from this trying to systemize things, and what you see a lot of times is, you're scaling and you start systemizing, but you start losing culture at the same time when you systemize it. So for us, that's where we really came up with the Bliss concept. Is like, well, we still want to maintain that. How can we maintain that compassion and kindness? How can we systemize that while we're growing? So as we're going through that process, like you said, you're building all these, the wiki and all this stuff, part of that is for, clarity as you expand. But then there's another part of it too that we often overlook, though. It's like, how can we systemize kindness in this for people, for, everyone who comes along, that we're prompting ourselves. If I'm no longer able to have my pulse on, this exact part of the process, how can I make sure that we do it, with love or with kindness? So it's this interesting phase that you're going through where you have to be really careful about culture during those times, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like always just staying true to yourself, right? Like that's, even just with your business objectives or with your culture, it's just making sure that everything ties back to that and supports that. But yeah, it is true. I mean, you can lose sight of culture as you're creating these systems. So it's really important to keep those both kind of in balance.
Megan, I'd be curious to get your take on, I know you help firms through important transition like succession planning, for example. And a lot of companies don't realize how systems play a big role in the ability to actually have that in place, like the ability to make a transition, to make those changes. How do you help those leaders support them through a leadership continuity plan by either introducing systems to them? Walk us through, like, what do you typically do in those moments to help them with that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, strong systems, they are what make this continuity possible, right? And I can't tell you how many phone calls I get, heads of professional service firms that haven't quite thought about the succession planning until they're a couple of years out, when it's like more at their doorstep. And I think that I see that it all lives with one person, the relationships, the decisions, how things get done, right? It's run on people, not systems. And so this is where the transitions can really break down. And obviously this is where systems are so critical. So we help clients kind of baby step into developing those systems. Again, it's like how we did it, right? You don't create systems overnight. You kind of look at what are the most critical pieces that we should start now. You create a roadmap to like, how do we create these systems? What technology is needed to create these systems? A lot of times, especially professional service firms, they can be a bit on the caboose of technology. They're using like archaic systems that don't really support the modern, innovative workforce. So it's kind of baby stepping into that of like, okay, let's sort of map out what's needed. And like, how are clients handled? How are decisions made? Are made? How does the firm shows up? So everyone starts working from the same playbook, and we've created a lot of that. And so then when you transition with those playbooks and systems in place, you don't lose momentum. Like, clients will still have a consistent experience. Teams know what to do. Other leadership can stepping in without like feeling they always have to go to one person. So it's just like peeling away one layer at a time to get them there. And unfortunately, I think just a lot of firms think of this pretty late in the game.
Yeah, late in the game. But it's just like, this is a long process sometimes if you want to do it right. Yeah. It's like, it's not just a couple years. Like for us, even, we switched to this sort of self-managed process. We're still going through it, which is not easier when you're, already operating some other way. But
yeah,
I just came out of a meeting where I just sat back through the whole meeting just saying, do I need to even really say anything here? And, I gave my 15 seconds at the end, but everyone was kind of rolling with things and had momentum in a lot of ways. But that took, just to get to that point, that took years, like a couple of years.
We're 2.5 years in.
2.5 years into it. And, we aren't even thinking about the succession planning that can come out of this down the line with our company. But how long of a process, how long a period of time would you recommend for companies kind of thinking about going through that succession planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a perfect world, you'd start planning 10 years in advance.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a couple of firms that do that really well. I mean, when I talk about, they have an entire plan of what 10 years look like to succession planning of their leadership, for example, of the managing partner of their firm.
Doing it really well, what does that look like?
Yeah, doing it well, having a very clear roadmap of exactly what succession means, right? So, whether it's training, identifying the person that's going to fill the role, making sure that they they're capable, right? I mean, a lot of times, people are placed in these roles and they just don't have the skill set to do it, right? And that isn't a 2-year thing. Maybe they can be capable, but it's going to take a lot of training and a lot of shadowing to really understand what that position takes. I think you get the whole firm involved. I think everybody has a role in succession planning. A lot of times people think it's just the leadership. And I actually think that the entire firm should be part of that transition and training. Everybody kind of has an oar to row. But I will say that we have seen firms successfully do things in a much shorter time period. One, because they have no other choice. It's like, I want to get out of this business and I don't want my legacy to be, dust when I walk out the door. And, they've got their eyes set on a specific date and we have to sort of rush to that. I think, again, I see a lot of overcomplication of these things where, yes, it does take time. But for example, we built our wiki, Berbay's wiki, in 6 months. I never in my whole life thought, but I ran it I was running a really tight ship on that. I was like, we're not going to work on this for 5 years. And yes, is it a living, breathing thing that's constantly evolving? Absolutely. But let's just get it to the place where we need it right now and we can continue to refine it. I think you can work in truncated time frames. You just have to be really disciplined and you have to have someone really shepherding everything.
I want to shift into the role of purpose, how that plays into creating innovative work models, especially for the future of work. And I want to start with a little stat. PwC did a research, and it showed that 79% of employees, they say that purpose is a key factor in their job satisfaction. People want to show up with a sense of meaning behind what they're doing, understanding why they're doing what they're doing beyond just the profit. And so as work models evolve, leaders are being asked to create environments that feel meaningful as well as productive, especially the newer generation. It's like, give me a reason why I'm here. It's not just enough for the paycheck. I want to have meaning. And and even us older generation care about that too. How do you see purpose influencing the future of work, for example, in professional services firms, which might be more traditional historically in how they do things?
Yeah, I think purpose is becoming a lot more visible, and just in how people choose where and how they work. I mean, in my marketing agency, the work to me feels inherently meaningful. Like you're helping clients solve real problems. We're navigating really high stakes situations. We're growing their business. Like their success is our success. Their lack of success is our lack of success, right? So, but I do think leaders have to make that connection really clear. So in professional service firms, or even in my agency, I think when people understand how their work contributes to something bigger, engagement does go way up. I mean, again, you go from like completing tasks to like invested in people's outcomes. And I do think leadership plays a tremendous role in this. Like you have to constantly reinforce the why behind the work, right? Not just the what. And at the same time, the purpose has to be real. Like if there's a disconnect between what a firm says it stands for and how it actually operates, people pick up on that very quickly. And that's when you get like such a high churn rate with your staff. I think that the firms doing this well are aligning this purpose with performance. Like they're creating these places where people feel like their work matters. They're still delivering, at this high level. And I think that's going to be a big part of the future of work, because as you mentioned, like that's, 70, I think you said 79%, that's a big chunk, but you also cannot force it. If people do not find purpose, despite what's inherently there or what leadership does to show that purpose, there might be a mismatch, right? Like, meaning they're likely in the wrong position or the wrong industry or the wrong firm. And I really believe that, because not everyone is going to find purpose in a marketing agency. I do. I love it. It is my passion. It is, so important to me. But that might not be the same exact perspective that everyone else walks through. So kind of understanding that people are people, and sometimes there's a mismatch.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand too, because once you have that very clearly defined purpose within your organization, you find the people who are empowered by that, right? And if someone's not, this isn't, maybe the right place for them, and you fill them with someone who's attracted to that, and you end up with a much more engaged work environment. Thinking about a little bit about when we were talking about the succession planning and stuff, a lot of the thought leadership usually falls on, like a CEO, right? Or a CMO or the head of some department. Some one person usually takes on some of this role of thought leadership. And I'm watching kind of our staff as we've gone through this shift of sort of the self-managed environment now, where they're all have opportunity for thought leadership, and some of them are really embracing it and thinking about. And for us, our culture really kind of shines through in all that. And for you, how do you help clients kind of align that their internal culture with that external messaging? Because I think for us, we're kind of living it, and I see it coming out in the way they now jump into these opportunities for thought leadership, and how well they embrace it, and that they're no longer scared to do these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one, because you can't really separate those anymore. Your culture and sort of what you say to the your external messaging. I think that authenticity is just so important now. I mean, it's more important than ever because of AI, right? Like people want that authenticity. Yeah. People don't want to talk to AI robots, I think the external messaging that you have, it has to reflect what's actually happening internally. Again, if there's a gap, like clients, employees, they see right through that. And especially with like real-time thought leadership, right? Social media, the news. I mean, you have to be really clear before you just like go out in the world and start doing thought leadership. So a lot of what we do is getting really clear on like who you are, how you operate, like what do you want to be known for, not just aspirationally, like, but in reality, right? And then from there, we build messaging that's authentic to that. But I think it's like I always say that like PR and marketing, it doesn't create something that isn't there. It amplifies what already exists, right? So the firms that are most effective are the ones where this culture and brand are totally aligned, and what they say externally is exactly what you experience when you work for them. And I think that's what builds long-term trust. And more importantly, that can just ruin trust so quickly when those two things are not the same.
It's so true. And your marketing just goes like anything you've been trying to say, it just falls flat, and actually you go backwards a little bit. But for us, like when we defined, our sort of Bliss internal philosophy, that was 8 years ago. 8 years ago. So now people are starting to get in front of like, a microphone or social media and stuff. And I can totally trust that we're all on the same page with stuff, just because I know where everyone's hearts is, and everyone knows the kind of the North Star of how we operate. And I don't need to micromanage someone. If they don't know what to do, we always say, do the loving thing. So,
Yeah, I think the magic that happens is when you shift to a model where there's more equivalence and empowerment, you give people a chance to step into their better version that they didn't even know they had. And then as you observe them do it, what bubbles up is so much more than you thought was even possible, because they tap into their best work. And it's magical to watch it happen, to see people that thought that their role was kind of more reactive and then jump into being leaders, not just doing their job. They're leaders.
Yeah.
It's really the transformation that's happening. When you create that, you can't stop that business, because you got everybody operating like they're the CEO. It's just, you can't stop them. And it's beautiful to watch. So we got a couple of audience questions before we get to our final segment. All right. First question from LinkedIn. How do you balance being innovative with the need to remain credible and traditional for conservative clients? Good question.
Great question. So all of our clients are conservative, I would say. We're working with professional service firms, law, real estate, and finance. They're probably about some of the most conservative industries out there. I think there's a scale of, how conservative they are, but I think generally they all fall in that bucket. The authenticity, right? When we look at like who the firm is and what their culture is, what they stand for, we take that and we try to get creative with it, right? And there are one of the hardest is we can get really innovative and really creative with the messaging that's still very much true to the firm. The question is, are they going to buy into it? Because they're sometimes, they have either a little bit of imposter syndrome or a little bit of fear that it might be too provocative, pushing the envelope too much. But that's who we are as a creative agency. We are going to show them what we would do with their brand and how we would communicate their brand to the general public in the most creative way. Because I think we could all say we probably go on different professional service websites and they all look the same. You could just switch out the logos and it could be that firm, right? Whether it's using the same colors, the same fonts, it looks the same. So we just position it as like, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to be any different? And your differentiator cannot be like, we're tech forward. What does that mean? You have a computer and a printer? Like, what does that even mean? Like, speaking in plain language, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, there's no emotional connection with being, we're tech forward. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good for you. So is everyone.
And a lot of the professional services there, it's all about, they pound their chest or how great they are. Nobody cares. Like, tell me why it means something to me. And then having them shift to that mindset is sometimes challenging, would you say?
It is.
Okay.
It's the way you present it to them too. Like you gotta like package it and get them comfortable with it and get them to see the longer vision, because people just want to say no for the things that make them uncomfortable. I do it too. I'm always like, no, because it makes me uncomfortable. You got to just get into that, be okay with that, like being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So.
I just tell them directly, nobody cares.
Look, I want to say, if you're in marketing out there in a marketing business, you really have this huge opportunity to lead a company, to lead, these areas that we're talking about, to really help define the DNA of that culture. And I think a lot of marketers, they don't think about it that way. They're just thinking, data, thinking features, benefits, but you really do have an opportunity to help define the DNA in that. And that's where you're going to get your best marketing.
It's so important. And I will add one more thing too, like know who you're talking to, right? Because somebody has to give the green light or the red light on whatever idea that you're creating. So you need to have them in the right frame of mind, the right meeting setting. Like I would never try to pitch a new idea to a lawyer that's in a trial, right? Like she's busy, he's busy. Like you have to think about what is the best environment to pitch this idea to, right? And how do I do that? I think that's like critical. If you get them on the wrong time, like it's a no.
Very good point. Tulio, we got another.
We got one more on YouTube. How can we use modern tools like AI or automation without losing the high touch personal feel that law and finance clients expect?
Yeah, so this is a great question.
If I could just quickly add, because some of this stuff is sounding very clinical. It's starting to look another Me Too sort of.
All the AI stuff. Well, Me Too is something totally different, Tulio. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I used to use that term before the whole thing happened. I still do it. I'm sorry, but like that's what happens. Your brand looks the same. It's like I have that too. So so how do you differentiate that, especially with AI, right? Initially, maybe it would help you, but now everybody sounds the same because they're all using AI.
Right. This is so important. So I think that there are some things, some AI automation tools that you can use. I always look at it like this. You can use AI and automation in almost everything that you do, but it has to have a human bookcase, right? Human touch from the beginning, AI in the center, human intelligence on the end, right? So let's talk about content, right? The most easy thing you can AI. It's great for drafting first versions, organizing data, summarizing things, giving, standardizing things, but you need to give it the real perspective, the judgment, the tone, the context. You have to have that the human hand on the wheel is critical. It's so critical. Also, you have to think about where the high touch points are, right? And how maybe you can bring in AI to just make that more efficient, meaning you're not taking away the high touch, but you're making it easier for the person who's going through the high touch moment. So I think you have to personalize. It's the differentiator right now. Like AI, you can tell when you're reading something from AI. You can tell when someone's speaking. You can tell those things. People don't want that. They don't like that. Even LinkedIn is making changes. Everybody's making changes now to be anti-AI because they don't want everything to be AI. So I think there's always ways to reduce, to make more efficiencies, to reduce the burden, but that human intelligence is never going away.
Yeah, so true. All right. So Megan, one question we like to ask all of our guests on the show is some form of this is, what role does love play in business, or should love play in business?
Well, I think it's a pretty big role. You've got to love what you do. You have to love the people you do it with. I think it's actually one of the most important pieces, right? Whether you're an employer or an employee, like if you don't love what you do and you don't love who you do it with, I just think, get out now. For me, caring for my people is number one. I deeply care for my staff and for my clients. And yes, we still have to, we're in a high performance environment. Our clients expect results. I expect results, but it doesn't mean you sacrifice how you treat people to get there. And I think for me, it's just creating an environment where people feel supported, respected, trusted. And when people feel that, they feel much more engaged. They take more ownership. They care more. So for me, it's like, it's not high performance or love. It's both, right? Like it's putting that both together. To me, that's the most important thing. And if my people are not happy, my clients included, that is actually what keeps me up at night. Those are the things that really disturb me.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay. So final question as we wrap up. We want to give something to the audience, something they can take an action on, something tangible. So for those leaders looking to rethink their work models today, if you had to pick one step, just one, what is the one step? Like if you're going to remember anything, take this step. This is the thing that they can do that creates more effectiveness and more human-centered organization. What would that be?
Simplify. It's my current life motto. I think I see a systemic overcomplication of everything, how the work gets done. Too many meetings, too many layers, too many emails, too many touch points. I think if you could just take a step back and like what actually drives results, what is slowing us down, I think you're going to find some very obvious opportunities to simplify. You don't need to overhaul everything. It's like small changes, simplifying small processes, improving certain communication. That can have a big impact really quickly. It's like, that's all I could talk about now is simplifying and systems. The two S's.
I love it. Okay. For those who want to learn more about you, connect with you, what's the best way they can do that?
So Berbay.com, that's our website where we have a lot of thought leadership pieces for professional service firm industry. I talk to everyone. So if you want to email me or call me, my contact information is on the website. I love having conversations with people. It's what I thrive on, whether you're a prospect or just sort of someone that wants to talk. My door is wide open. So, but follow us. We have a newsletter. You can follow us on social, on all the socials as well.
Megan, thank you for joining us today. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in and your great questions. The future of work is being shaped every day by the choices we make today. So we need to, rethink our systems and what better means. Yes, we all want better numbers, but how about better collaboration, kinder communication, more thoughtful leadership? All of us can help each other become better humans along the way by doing that. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.